Your lifelong mission, faith. You know, life is kind of funny. I started out going in one direction with this talk, and all of a sudden the whole talk flipped on me about Friday and went in a whole different direction. I watch a lot of movies. I read a lot. From Seabiscuit, life without faith is hopeless. You always feel you'll lose everything. You have to have faith in life itself. We all have things happen along the way that knock us down. Faith is saying, okay, is that the best you've got? Get up, dust yourself off, and keep going. If you lose faith, you lose hope. If you lose hope, you lose sight of everything that you want, everything that you feel you can be, everything you could be, all the things that contribute to a full life. Sure, sometimes something happens that we don't particularly care for. The question becomes, what can I learn from this? Life is learning experiences. We have to have faith that whatever happens, it teaches us something. And based on that information, we know what to do next. Life is a perpetual learning machine fed by our faith and fed by our actions. The series Joan of Arcadia, which was a poorly watched series in the early 2000s, your actions show your faith. Your actions show your faith. What are you doing that shows what you believe in and how much you believe it? What are you willing to do to exhibit that faith and to put your faith into action? That's why I chose hands as the meditation today. It's about putting faith into action. Our hands are small, but they are capable of doing big and great things. Each of us can do big and great things. Each of us can accomplish things that we thought were impossible. It isn't hard. You just have to believe. You just have to have faith. And maybe sometimes that's the hardest thing of all, to have faith. How come? Well, something raises its ugly head. It's something called fear. Fear. F-E-A-R. Forgetting everything's all right. In spite of what you want to attach to it, everything's all right. Everything's going to work out fine. You may have to redirect at the last minute. Something may come up that changes everything you planned. Your carefully laid plans may not be where you're going to go or where you're going to end up. But don't let fear scare you out of the changes. Change is not showing us what we did wrong. Change is the ultimate validation of what you have done. Because everything that you've done led you to this change. Don't be afraid. Be like the butterfly. What is death for the worm is life for the butterfly. It's a change. We're in change constantly. And the only thing that stops us is fear. We seem to forget that everything's all right. Okay, it isn't the way I want it to be. What can I do with what I've got? Jewel, going back to her, wrote a poem. She wrote lots of poems, actually, that most of which we didn't know about because they weren't turned into songs. And she has a poem called The Things You Fear. The things you fear are undefeatable, not by their nature, but by your approach. Not by their nature, but by your approach. Because you fear it, you give it power. It becomes indestructible. Anything you fear, you can't move through or past because it's just going to be there. It'll overwhelm you because you allow it to overwhelm you. I'm not saying any of this is easy. It's not. It's darn hard. Life is darn hard work. Dave Merton broke an arm this last week. He's going to be out of work for 3 months. That certainly wasn't in your plan, was it, Dave? He's nodding no. However, he can either fight with that and wrestle with it and cause himself lots of anxiety, or he can find ways to co-op with what's happened, with the new reality of his life for the next few months. We all have these things happen. Ray hoped his daughter would go to college. Instead, she got married. That threw you, didn't it, Ray? However, did you co-op with it or did you fight it? Or did you do a little of both?
Well, she's a teenage girl and you can't tell her anything, so you go with it.
And in our hearts, most of us are still teenagers and we want to fight with anything that doesn't go the way we want it to go.
But on the plus side, I have a beautiful grandson.
There you go. If we don't co-op what's happening in life, we're doomed to a life of fighting ourselves, fighting everything and everyone around us. We all know people who we feel are perpetually angry. Are they really perpetually angry, or are they just unable to adapt and accept what is going on in life around them? It's mostly the latter. And all that lack of adaptability creates anger. Why can't things go my way? Why can't they be the way I want them to be? Well, they just aren't. You know, I would have liked to have gone fishing more this summer. It just didn't work this summer. And last summer, it was too hot. So it's been a couple of summers. But guess what? The upside is all those fish are getting bigger. The fish in Radigan Lake should be monsters next year. And they're waiting for Jennifer and Ray, and for Ray, Jim, and I to come and catch them and release them so that they can get bigger again. There's an upside to almost anything that you can find in life. How many people here are exactly where they thought they would be at this point in their life? Not even my hand went up. There have been so many changes along the way, and we had to have the faith that those changes were to our benefit, and then to adapt to those changes and consolidate that information into our lives. We consolidate it into our lives. We wonder sometimes about God and what's God's plan? Well, guess what? God's plan is you've got free will. So don't blame it on God. You've got free will. You get to choose. That's the wonderful thing about the whole system and the way it's set up. We have to have the faith that we can choose correctly. And maybe not correctly for all the people around us, but correctly for us. We each make choices that cause other people to go, how could you possibly do that? You did it because you had faith that it was the right thing for you. Your inner guidance told you this is the way to go. And sometimes that inner guidance could be described as the voice of God itself. It was an interesting line in one of the later seasons of The X-Files, where Agent Scully says to her priest, she was a lax Catholic and she started going back to church. And she said, Father, what if God is talking to us, but nobody's listening? What if God's talking to us, but nobody's listening? On the other side of that, though, we talk to God. How many people here pray? Pray is like a conversation, having a conversation with God. Prayer is like that. Now, if God hears every prayer, and of course lots of people are praying at the same time, does God have prayer waiting? God hears every prayer. The answer to your prayer may not be the answer you thought it should be. You have to have faith that you're going to get the right answer, that the answer you receive is in your best interest. Lots of times we go off in a different direction, like I said earlier. Life is funny that way. But if we allow ourselves the flexibility and the ease to have that and to believe and to have faith, we're going to be all right. And the interesting thing is that sometimes other people don't recognize that we have faith at all. Interesting story. Towards the end of my 12-year journey around the country, I was in Long Island at a religious science center. And one of the attendees at the workshop that I gave that night was a woman by the name of Agnes Joel, Billy Joel's mother. And after I'd done my presentation, she came up to me and she said, I didn't know who the woman was. And she said, I wish my son could have been here to hear this tonight because he has no faith in anything at all. And I said, well, who's your son? She said, well, I'm Agnes Joel. My son's Billy. And I looked at her and I laughed. And I said, do you pay any attention to your son's music? It's been a progression of faith all the time. And his latest song is a true testament of faith. And so I'd like to end with that, with the video, The River of Dreams. It's all a matter of faith. Have faith that we're going to see a video here in just a second, or not. And in either case, we'll continue to have faith. The glitches are what makes life fun. If every drive you hit, Bill, went out 250 yards, would it be any fun? But that doesn't always happen, does it? And I guess Billy Joel has gone off into the ethers. He's coming still? He's thinking about it. Not going to happen, Jim? Hang on, Jim says. In the meantime, let's review. Life without faith is hopeless. You always feel like you're going to lose everything. Your actions, what you do, how you do it, show your faith. Fear is false evidence appearing real. And blue screen. The things you fear, you ready? No. The things you fear are I don't fear things going wrong. Several ministers that I worked with over the 12 years I was on the road said that there were always glitches whenever I spoke because I carried gremlins with me. You got to be ready for the glitches. The gremlins are a part of life. Nothing goes exactly the way you planned it. This is just an example. The big thing about the River of Dreams, in the middle of the night, I go walking in my sleep to the River of Dreams, to the river so deep. I've been looking for something deep in my soul. Got to keep the faith. He talks about faith in that song. And his mother didn't believe he had any. And it was a deeply spiritual song about faith. For all of you, keep faith. Stay brave. Stay bold. Know that you can do anything as long as you believe it. Life is good. Life works. God loves us. That's the truth in 5 words.